Hello and a very warm welcome to Kognito's Key. Today we're going to break down a problem that seems, well, almost impossible, but you'll see it has a surprisingly smart and simple solution.
So let's jump right in. Imagine this task. You have to find out the favorite TV show of every single high school student in the entire country. I mean, where would you even start? It sounds like a massive, mind-boggling job, right? Well, stick around, because today we're going to unlock a clever shortcut that researchers use to tackle huge questions just like this one.
Here's what we've got lined up. We'll start by figuring out how to solve that impossible survey. Then we'll get into what cluster sampling actually is. After that, we'll explore its three main types. I'll walk you through a simple four-step process, and we'll wrap up by looking at why it's such an incredibly useful tool.
Okay, so let's get back to that giant puzzle. Trying to reach millions of students one by one would take ages and cost an absolute fortune. The key here isn't to work harder, it's to work smarter. And that means we need to think about sampling.
The real challenge is that you can't just survey everyone, and you probably don't even have a list of every student in the country. This is where a very powerful shortcut comes into play. It's a technique that lets us focus on groups instead of individuals, and that saves a ton of time and money.
So what is this magical shortcut? It has a name, and it's called cluster sampling. Let's break down exactly what that means and how it all works. Okay, so here's the textbook definition, but what does that really mean? In simple terms, it's about taking a huge population and chopping it up into smaller, natural groups. Then, instead of picking out individuals from all over the place, you just randomly pick a few of those entire groups to study.
To make this super clear, let's use an example we can all picture. Imagine you own a food delivery service in a big, sprawling city. You want to know if your customers are happy, but there's no way you can call every single one of them.
In this scenario, the city's neighborhoods are your clusters. You can easily divide the whole city into these distinct areas. Now, the key thing here is that they are non-overlapping. That just means every customer belongs to one and only one neighborhood. Simple, right?
And what about the people inside those clusters? Well, those are your elementary units. For our food delivery service, these are just your individual customers. So to recap, the neighborhoods are the clusters, and the customers living in them are the elementary units.
Now, what's really cool about cluster sampling is that it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. You can actually adapt it based on what you need. So let's have a look at the three main types.
First up, we have the most straightforward version of all. It's called single-stage cluster sampling.
It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. In one single step, you randomly pick a few neighborhoods from your city map, say 5 of them. Then, you go and survey every single customer within those 5 chosen neighborhoods. It's direct, it's simple, and it's very thorough for the groups you select.
But hang on, what if even those neighborhoods are too big? What if surveying everyone in them is still too much work? Well, that brings us to the second type.
This is two-stage cluster sampling. It just adds one more layer of selection. So you start the same way, randomly pick a few neighborhoods. But then, and here's the second stage, instead of talking to everyone, you take another random sample, this time of just a few customers from within each of those chosen neighborhoods. This makes your final group of people much smaller and way more manageable.
And finally, for those really huge populations, there's a third, more complex type.
This is multi-stage cluster sampling. Just think of it as taking the two-stage idea and adding even more steps. For example, you might randomly pick some neighborhoods, then randomly pick a few streets inside those neighborhoods, and then randomly pick specific houses on those streets. It's perfect for massive nationwide studies. So we've covered the what and the why. Now let's get practical. How would you actually do this yourself? Don't worry, it boils down to a pretty simple four-step process.
Let's quickly walk through it. First, you define your whole population, all your customers, and divide them into clusters, like our neighborhoods. Second, you treat each whole neighborhood as a single item on your list. So now your list isn't thousands of people, it's maybe 50 neighborhoods. Much easier. Third, you randomly select a sample of those neighborhoods. And fourth, you go out and collect your data from every customer inside those chosen clusters. All right, we've got the concept, the different types, and the process down. The last piece of this puzzle is to really understand why this method is so valuable and so popular.
So what is it about this method that makes it a go-to for researchers who are dealing with huge populations spread all over the place?
Well, the advantages are pretty huge. For one, it's way more cost-effective.
It's much cheaper to send your team to 5 specific neighborhoods than to 500 random addresses scattered across an entire city. Plus, and this is a big one, you don't need a complete list of every single person to begin with. You just need a list of the clusters, like the neighborhoods.
But here's the catch. The entire magic of this method relies on this one crucial idea. For it to work properly, each cluster, each neighborhood, needs to be like a mini version of the entire city. It should have a good mix of people. If your chosen neighborhoods aren't representative, then your results won't be accurate.
And that leaves us with a final thought. If it's really possible to understand a massive population just by studying a few small groups that act as mirrors, think about how that could change the kinds of big, ambitious questions we can now try to answer. It really opens up a whole new world of possibilities for understanding our society in a much smarter and more efficient way. Thank you so much for joining us on Kognito Key today. If you found this useful, please do give this video a like and share it with someone who might be interested. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more explainers just like this one. We'll see you in the next one.